President Trump humiliates South African President Ramaphosa as the media lose their minds. The big, beautiful bill is out of committee and onto the House floor, and unsatisfied with only wrecking Democrats in the Senate Foreign Affairs Committee, Secretary of State Marco Rubio drops by the House Foreign Affairs Committee for seconds. I'm Tony Kinnett, host of the Daily Signal's Tony Kinnett Cast, syndicated nationally at 7 p.m. Eastern. It is Thursday, May 22nd, 2025. This is the Daily Signal's top news in 10. Fireworks at the White House yesterday as President Donald Trump and South African President Cyril Ramaphosa went a little toe-to-toe over whether or not there is a genocide against white people in South Africa. Now, the objective data right now, that includes video footage as well as news articles with extensive documentation on the ground from multiple sources, from multiple ideological places in the spectrum, suggests that there is, in fact, systemic violence, including murder and sexual assault of individuals in South Africa who appear to be white. One of the main South African political parties, the Economic Freedom Fighters, a racial Marxist group, has called for the genocide of individuals in South Africa who are descendants of the Dutch all the way back to the 1600s from the halls of South Africa's government building. After an international reporter asked Trump a rather loaded question,
what would it take for you to be convinced that there's no white genocide in South Africa?
the South African President Ramaphosa cut President Trump off and said that he just needed to listen to people from South Africa.
Well, I can answer that for President. It's for him. No, seriously.
I'd rather have him answer.
Yeah, I'd rather answer that. It will be.
Our president will respond to you.
Yeah, let me.
Thank you, Mr. President.
It will take President Trump listening to the voices of South Africans, some of whom are his good friends.
Gesturing to three white golfers he brought over to the United States to talk to President Trump. What happened next is one of the more unique moments in White House history. President Trump suggested that the lights be turned down low.
Let me see the articles, please, if you would. And turn the lights down. Turn the lights down and just put this on. It's right behind you.
And then played footage of Julius Malema from South Africa calling for the open murder, theft, and sexual assault of white people.
Must never be scared to kill. A revolution demands that at some point there must be killing, because the killing is part of a revolutionary act. Shoot to kill. Yamaza. Kill the poor, the farmer.
When you want to hit them hard, go after a white man who will expropriate land without compensation, whether they like it or not. If they object, they can seek refuge in America.
President Ramaphosa and most of his delegation looked at the floor or awkwardly off to the side during the video, refusing to even acknowledge the evidence that was contradictory to what they had just been saying in front of the President of the United States. And unfortunately for Ramaphosa, one of the golfers who was supposed to testify to President Trump that everything was hunky-dory in South Africa ended up suggesting instead that things were incredibly unsafe for white people in South Africa, saying that his family members who farmed in the northern regions of the country had extensive security systems, including electric fences, bars on their windows and doors, and were told not to leave the farm because then that land might be confiscated. The legacy media descended on the meeting like vultures, immediately heading into panels like this one over on CNN, suggesting that this was totally debunked and that none of this had ever happened at all in South Africa.
Cyril Ramaphosa brought his best diplomatic self to this meeting, but nothing could have prepared him for this multimedia ambush that President Trump laid out with video, with printed out news stories. This was a laundry list of debunked conspiracy theories.
A bevy of headlines began to appear from the legacy media outlets saying that Trump had ambushed the South African president with videos from South Africa of the genocide happening in South Africa. And President Trump's big, beautiful bill is out of committee and onto the House floor. Now, here's a moment of confession. It is currently 10:18 p.m. Eastern, And I'm afraid we don't quite know at this time whether or not Speaker Johnson is going to have the House of Representatives vote on the bill with a few minor amendments this evening or sometime in the early morning. So by the time you're listening to this or watching this over on YouTube, you might be more up to date on this one than we are. We did sit down yesterday with Representative John James of Michigan's 10th to talk a little bit about the different measures in the Big Beautiful Bill, some of the things that he expects are going to make the largest difference not only to Americans via the tax system, but some of the regulatory changes as well. Check it out.
Right now, what we're doing, passing this big, beautiful bill, is putting more money back into your hands by having a Made in America tax credit. So we are incentivized to build and buy here. Make sure that we protect and preserve the child tax credit, people who are trying to grow their families and take care of them. Make sure that we're doing all of those things so businesses can grow and families can thrive. And oh, by the way, we're securing the border. We're getting our energy independence. We're doing all these things of bringing the regulatory barriers down. And that's not good just for the plants and factories that are coming to Indiana and Michigan, but it's also good for our farmers, people who have been struggling to make ends meet. That's going to provide major relief. So we are putting Americans first. We're supporting President Trump's big, beautiful bill, and it can't come a moment too soon.
Lastly, after duking it out with Senator Chris Van Hollen and a few others in the Senate Foreign Affairs Committee on Monday, yesterday, Secretary of State Marco Rubio went over to the House Foreign Affairs Committee to duke it out with a few more Democrats, this time, you guessed it, over on the House. First up, a couple of accusations regarding USAID from Representative Gabe Amo, Democrat of Rhode Island.
So my question for you is, are you doing everything you can to keep starving children from dying?
There was no State Department delays to that being deployed. There may have been other delays, but it wasn't State Department.
There were State Department delays. And it is clear that you have not done everything you can do to keep these kids from starving, because there are another 185,000 boxes of Ruffs that the U.S. government and taxpayers have already paid for sitting in that same warehouse, all because the State Department doesn't have a plan, doesn't have its stuff together to get this rolling. So I can think of several countries where this aid is desperately needed, where these boxes of Ruffs could save hundreds of thousands of children's lives. And these delays have real consequences, not just for starving children, but also jobs at home. I talked to the CEO of Adija, who said they had to lay off 10% of their team due to the lack of payments from the U.S. government and a lack of clarity in March. So Secretary Rubio, will you commit to making decisions needed to move the remaining 185,000 boxes of Ruffs to countries that need them by the end of this week?
Well, I'd be interested to learn what those impediments are.
Well, we've been talking about this for a while. I've sent you letters since January.
But there's no impediment on our end to distributing that.
There are impediments. I'm speaking directly to the
Sudan
source.
is a war zone.
Secretary, I'm reclaiming my time. This exists as a problem, and you have not acted.
That's false.
And maybe it's the case that you have too many jobs, because I know it's the case. It must be a lot to be the National Security Advisor, the National Archivist, or the head of USAID. That's a lot. I understand a lot of footballs. You're a football player. That's a lot of balls to catch. But the issue here is we have children who are dying. So will you commit to continuing to fund the production, transportation, and distribution of these domestically produced life-saving products to save starving children around the world?
They're approved now.
They are not moving. I just told you about 185,000 boxes in Rhode Island. I live there.
And you need to figure out why they're not moving, because it isn't an impediment from us.
Sir, you need to figure out. That's actually your job, sir.
No, it's no impediment from the State Department.
Well, Mr.
There may
Secretary,
be a
it
logistical
seems like
impediment
you
that
will
have
not
nothing
make
to do
a
with
commitment.
us.
Sir, it seems like you refuse to make a commitment.
We do more of that than anybody in the world, and we're going to continue to do it. We're going to continue to do food aid. We're going to do more food aid than any country on the planet times 10.
Well, that's a lot of talk. But I believe
those are numbers.
Seeing is believing, and there is not to be seen.
Those are numbers. Those are facts. We do more foreign aid.
Well, I've got numbers. I've got 185,000 boxes that aren't moving. So,
but the State Department doesn't move boxes.
I'm going to do you a little favor.
We authorize them.
Mr. Secretary, I'm reclaiming my time, sir.
Afterward, Pramila Jayapal, representative of Washington's 7th, got a little animated over Secretary Rubio's insistence that a visa is not a right, and individuals who come to the United States to incite violence may not, in fact, get to keep their visa.
Student was a guest in the United States on a student visa. No one's entitled to a student visa.
So you revoked her student visa based on an op-ed which trumps the Supreme law of the land, which is the Constitution.
Someone's coming up here to stir up problems on our campus. We're going to revoke their visa.
She didn't do any of that. She wrote an op-ed.
Well,
she wrote an op-ed, and I'm talking to you about her particular
case.
case.
Claims and your claims. Those are not the facts.
You reclaiming my time. You revoked her student visa because
proudly.
she wrote an op-ed.
And
Would you revoke?
We're going to do more. We will revoke the visa of anyone who's in this country as a guest who's here to stir up trouble.
Are you going to revoke the visa of somebody who made that?
Send me the case. I'll look at it. I'm looking to get crazy people out of our country.
Actually, it's not just about revoking. You actually, Secretary Rubio, excuse me, reclaiming my time. If these are legitimate law enforcement agents carrying out proper arrests, why are they hiding their identities?
Because then radical crazies will try to hurt them.
Before you go, head down to the description and make sure you're subscribed to the Tony Kindedcast. And join us tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern, where we tangle with even more fallout, if you can believe it, from the Joe Biden scandal. I'm Tony Kinnett, and this has been the Daily Signal's Top News in 10. Take care.